Hey, welcome back to Inside Integration. My name is Chris. I'm joined as always by Jason, my partner over here.
How you doing?
And today we are joined by Jaimey Sapp from Northern Technology Solutions. Hey, Jamie.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going well, sir. We're super happy to have you on. It was great seeing you down in Phoenix a couple weeks ago, and we definitely wanted to get you on and talk to you because I kind of feel like it's been too long, and you're doing some amazing things in the Great White North, and thought that might be a pretty compelling thing to bring to the masses is what it's actually like to be an integrator in Alaska and all the challenges that come with it. So, how are you? How are you doing?
Doing well. We're thawing out right now, so everything's moving in the right direction. It is a challenge in the custom integration world up here for multiple reasons, but yeah, it's we're doing well.
It definitely seems like you are. Obviously, we know each other, but we kind of follow you afar, on your socials and all that stuff. And it looks like you're building a pretty world class facility up there as a showroom. And it's just been really great to see your progress and what you're putting into it. The other thing that's really interesting, again, on your social feeds is, you're kind of an electrician first, right? So you're kind of one of the stories where you started out in the electrical side and you sort of moved into the CI side, and that's fascinating to me that you would want to expand like that and do that. I mean, speaking as a primarily electrician who does CI mostly, what was your takeaway from like Lightapalooza and this event that was kind of marketed towards CI guys who want to get into lighting as a lighting guy who got into CI?
So just a short bit about me to kind of to wrap it all in one little package for you. I've got 30 years experience in the electrical industry and 20 plus in the CI channel. I moved here from Georgia in 1997, and so I've been here for quite a while. But I, you know, I've really enjoyed that transition, but it's definitely been different. As far as um, the experience and having the electrical experience, it made me more curious about how the two industries are starting to come together. And you know, I probably saw it 20 years ago where that transition started, and you started to see a lot more data and networking involved in electrical applications, and then therefore brought in the low voltage control applications closer to electrical. So the word automation, believe it or not, has been around a long, long time.
Sure.
And you can go back to the days of basic lighting contactors. That was automation,
Sure.
just a little more manual, but it was still automation. So
When you go
uh,
to trigger a scene and a whole panel of relays all clicks in unison, that's some cool stuff.
That sounds like a music box or something, right? Like like all this stuff, all that stuff clicking away. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah, there was a one attempt up here. I'm not sure how long ago or time frame or whatever, and I'm sure it wasn't only in Alaska that this happened, but there was an attempt to simplifying lighting control in residential. And you guys may have seen this. Have you ever seen the big relay boxes
Sure.
and the tiny low voltage toggle switches that they put in? We still have them up here. There's
Oh,
still
wow.
some still functioning, and it's crazy to see that big giant cabinet of ice cube relays.
Sure.
You know,
We used to run into those on retro jobs pretty often. Like there's some doing work in New York City, there was a lot of older stuff and completely fascinating, right? Like all the tools were there, right? It's
yeah,
basically like almost like a Mel jack push button, right? Like, everything is fully cyclical in this business. And, you'd click this thing and it would just light up a whole bunch of bus wiring, underneath the staircase somewhere or whatever it was. And, and yeah, it just demonstrates that lighting control is kind of nothing new. We've all kind of been in this for quite a while. So you still see these things then up there, I guess.
Yep. Yep. And as a matter of fact, one of my exposures in the industry was back prior to 1995, where I was working on industrial machinery doing PLC programming. So that was before I even got involved with the CI channel. And that's what got me fascinated in transferring from my world of electrical into the CI world.
That's crazy, man. I gotta rewind here for a second, okay? Like I've made a pretty meteoric leap in my career in terms of geography. Like I went from Western Canada to Southern California. Not every day, but I just got one upped by a pretty big margin. So Georgia to Alaska, what's that transition like? You're a peanut farmer one day, and like the next thing you're fighting grizzly bears. Like what's going on with you, man? Like honestly, what's up with that?
Well, we'll leave some of the details out.
Yeah, I don't need to know that you're a fugitive from the law or anything like that. But I need to hear this story because that's a move.
It was pretty much a transition of opportunity at the time in 1997. I loaded up my standard cab Dodge pickup truck with everything I owned in the back of it, covered it with a tarp, and 7 days later wound up in Anchorage, Alaska.
This is real man stories here, man.
Yeah, it is.
Like there's a lot of people that are like way too tepid or what have you to stick their neck out to make a move like that. So I think, just personally, I think that says a lot about, who you are to make that move and to be able to stick it out, right? Like you're in a new territory, in a new world, essentially completely new climate, all that stuff. People.
The man needed to move to the largest state in the country just to contain his gigantic balls that it took.
Oh man, I'm saying the guy's got some stones. I love that. That's fantastic.
Well, it's definitely. I think I look back sometimes and go, I did that. That was right on the verge of cell phones kind of becoming popular. So to think that I trekked across the US and through Canada, and knowing that every gas station you came upon, you filled up, or else you might be stuck somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah. You had your AAA flip trip, like the map on the paper. Like,
right. Your Hagstra map wide open on totally.
Yeah. Oh, but I've been super happy I did it. I really am. It's been quite the adventure.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, no, that's again, that's fantastic story. We didn't have any plan, I don't think, other than some basic conversation with you. That is like that's one of the nuggets that we're looking for.
Yeah, I certainly
shows,
I didn't know.
Amazing.
I knew you were there and then you moved, and I get that. I didn't realize that it was this, just movie worthy trek. Just a man in his pickup truck with all his stuff in the back, and you're just like a prospect.
Going to Alaska, right? I'm out of here. Kick rocks.
That's so
that.
Cool. That is so awesome.
That
takes a lot.
It was it was a little bit of a shock too. I mean, luckily I did it in July, so that was a good thing because I didn't have to worry too much about snow.
I had lots of light, so I could move in my stuff real slow. It didn't matter what time of day it was. I could just bring it on in. I could stay in the truck if I wanted to.
You didn't look like you were robbing someone. So.
Right? Yeah, I'm putting stuff in my house. I'm not taking it out and running off with it. Right? That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, was that that must have been a total. Obviously know about it, but that must have been a total shock going from, if you're, I'd imagine Anchorage in July, it probably turns pretty quick, right? Like, October or so, you're like, holy shit, is the sun going to come up? Like what? That must have been such a difference for you.
It was a huge difference. I mean, to know that, yeah, I mean, at that point in time in July, the sun was still not really setting until after 10 or so. Um,
No.
and
Just sitting there. This is great. I could barbecue so late, and then
I live in
suddenly,
the Pacific Northwest, and we don't get the 24-hour sun, but we do get that, 10:30 at night to like 4 in the morning sunrise kind of deal, and
yeah,
that's annoying enough. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I feel your pain on that
no,
one.
it's totally fine, you know. And then, I mean, to have been born, I was born in Savannah, spent most of my time about 60 miles west of Savannah, you know, up until I was 25-ish, whenever I made that jump. But um, you know, I didn't really think much about also the things that were different, you know, food and culture and people. And I mean, the South is great. Don't get me wrong.
sure.
It's got its nuances. But it's amazing to go from something that I grew up in into a melting pot of people, you know,
Yeah.
that people from all walks of life. And, you know, even to get here and go, what do you mean you don't have sweet tea? You know?
Yeah, right. Wow.
So,
Yeah, a
but
literal
Sure.
outpost of humanity on the edge of the world. I mean,
yeah,
it's Anchorage is not a big place, right? So
I remember rolling into, actually, it's a sort of an iconic breakfast place here. I had no idea. I just, you know, was told that I should try it out, and I did order breakfast, and was kind of unwinding from the trip. And I remember going back to the sweet tea joke. I ordered sweet tea, and I got a can of Lipton. You know, so but
No,
but
this
that was
this one
major
too.
progress.
yeah, that's what you'd get in Western Canada too. If you order an iced tea, they put a can of Nestea down on the table and go, or the powder. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Like it's the powdered
Oof.
iced tea mix, like instant tea.
And
I
it's still
mean,
swirling around in the
oh
glass as she
man,
puts it down in front of you.
little hack as a kid is like, there's no sugar, there's no candy or whatever in the house, but if you could get a spoon and get it wet and dip it in there, you got like a treat. It's kind of lemony and sweet. So there goes to show you how poor I was as a kid. Because I'm doing little dips in the powdered instant iced tea
Well, that
world.
is definitely like, poor man's fun dip, right?
Oh,
Like
it was
you take
amazing.
lick the spoon,
That
put it in.
that was what did he call that? Freeze dried entertainment.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That's a fantastic way to put it, man.
There
It's
you
a
go.
fantastic way to
Just
put it.
subpar iced tea and not a grit
Oh,
to be found, right? Like
Right.
no grits with it.
I love it. So
Brutal.
so you've moved from Georgia to Alaska, and now I've got to ask. I mean, we talked a little bit. You've got a showroom and stuff that you've opened, and you've really obviously set your roots down there. When it comes to the CI world, I'm thinking about Alaska, and that's a pretty unique story that you just told us. Like, have you got any cool, unique AK installs, or this would only happen in Alaska type stories? Like, I mean, again, we're happy to talk about your business and talk about all that stuff, but I really want to connect to, like just you're in a unique place that a lot of people don't have, or maybe have misconceptions about, or preconceived notions, or maybe you can confirm a stereotype for us. like you got any good stories about AK only, or even just a fun install you can share with us?
you know, I I can't think of anything that just totally sticks out to me right now.
Sure, I put you on the
We
spot,
we
so
may
maybe
have
that's a
to.
little unfair. You can email us after, and we'll put it in this.
Well, no, I just
Just kidding.
I'm trying to think over the years of doing this, what would be the most unique. I mean, we've had some pretty unique requests, but I can't say that anything is out of the norm.
Dolby Atmos in your outdoor archery range, or like I don't
Yeah,
know, like bear pen. I don't know what I've literally
Driveway
no idea.
heaters.
Yeah, driveway heater. That's a good one. Like, and that's another lane too. Like, is there some technology, or maybe some things that you're deploying because of the climate that other integrators maybe just haven't thought about? When it comes to maybe not just CCTV, or I mean, maybe that's a great one, right? But, not just typical
Yeah.
AV stuff, but maybe some of those home systems like radiant heaters and stuff like that. Like, I mean, those are all lanes and categories that get often overlooked, and money left on the table.
Yeah, we do have some, I guess you could say some features that probably a lot of people don't. Especially like in the wintertime. Lighting is a big thing, obviously.
Sure.
So I have had integrations where we've set up control of hockey rink lights in people's
Yeah, now we're
There
backyard.
we
talking,
go.
dude.
Um,
Just hit
there's
Jason's spot.
Yeah, I'm Canadian.
uh,
Sorry, my Canada was shown. My bad.
grow, you know, I guess you could say plant lights, grow lights, time for timers.
Oh, sure. I don't know what you'd need those for.
You've hit Jason's other spot.
No,
um,
you're growing
but
tomatoes. I know you're growing
I,
tomatoes in your basement. Tomatoes and
obviously,
roses. That's it.
obviously.
but heating systems too. I mean, for instance, we've used the lighting control options for. I had one client that he built this house, and the plumber did a good job on it, but he put in a 1-inch heat loop for hot water throughout the whole house, so that the hot water would be a little more on demand. But his that 1-inch line running 100 feet was expensive to keep it hot. It was costing him an extra $600 a month in gas, and so we actually set a timer schedule and a pump control for his system. And I actually used Savant. He's got Savant in his house, and so we used a Savant lighting switch to turn the pump on and off, and then set it on a timer schedule, so that he could either have on demand right then, turn it on, or it would run on a schedule. But yeah, he did. He told me that it saved him $600 a month.
That's great. I mean, that kind of justifies a big part of it
There's
right
one of
there,
those a
right?
leak. Yeah, there's one of those unique stories I was talking about. Not something you have to think about in Florida, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly.
exactly.
Hot water returns or something like that.
Yeah.
I love that. So I mean, again, those are the kind of gems we're looking for.
I mean,
think,
I would imagine too. I would bet that just you hit on the lighting thing, and I'm sure that's certainly important for part of the year when it's dark all the time. But I would imagine that shading is probably important for the opposite reason the other half of the year, right? Like how are you going to sleep with the sun coming in at 11 o'clock at night, right? Like you've got this permanent twilight for a lot of the year. I would imagine that kind of light control is probably pretty important too.
Well, a little bit of a comedy is when I first moved here, before I really got introduced to the automation. It wasn't hard to ride around and try to understand why there were so many windows with tinfoil in them. And so
That's just the conspiracy theorists, right? Like that's just stopping.
It's to keep the space lasers out. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. but that was a common theme. That was the solution was, most people didn't have, or a lot of people don't necessarily have the resources for shading and even something simplistic. They really needed it to be blacked out. And I never really knew that light affecting people had such a spectrum. Me, I can lay in the median of the highway at 5 o'clock traffic and sleep. I don't care.
Right.
I mean, I've
It's
learned.
a bad place to nap.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a
But
sidebar here. That's a terrible place to snooze.
It's a good observation. It's a pro tip.
but
tip
as
for
far
me.
as people have different levels. I mean, some people have to have it completely black, and then some are like, I don't care. I got a little bit of light sneaking in, just knock the sun rays down or something. So
Sure.
we have encountered that, and I mean, more and more as shading becomes more popular and available to people, it's starting to make a difference, especially knowing that people can have the control the way they want it. I've got doctors that do the same thing. They want their shading to go down before they even go in the bedroom.
Sure.
And so
Just to keep that
one
natural.
works night shift. He's got a a night schedule, and he's like, I want it as dark as possible. So when I go in there, it's got to be like a cave.
Sure.
So,
Ah,
but
sounds amazing.
shading is
Yeah,
shading is
that's
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Do you I mean, do you see a lot of folks, or do you push it a lot, the whole circadian aspect of it, where, maybe the day night cycle where you are isn't as, natural as you'd expect? Is that something that you kind of focus on, especially with fixtures where, you know, hey, I can replicate what the natural light is, somewhere that isn't just, absolutely crazy with day night cycles? Like, do you implement that?
We do actually. I've got a few projects that we've done circadian lighting on, and it's becoming more and more popular.
Hmm.
I think the industry is getting closer to where the demand is going to be able to meet the price point. Um,
Sure.
and I think honestly, I honestly believe the industry would have been further down the road with circadian or daylight mode lighting, um, had it been more affordable at the beginning. But
Sure.
not everybody could pay
Right.
$500 a fixture.
Well,
So
and just the fact that a lot of times it requires a whole new fixture, right? Like, you can't just retrofit. There's bulb solutions and that sort of thing, but it's usually not as easy as
not the same.
just swap out the hi hat, right?
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it's not the same. And I haven't personally been uh, involved with these projects. Of course, I wish I would have been, but you guys have all, I'm sure, heard of the North Slope, where
Hmm.
we pump a lot of oil up here, and the the corporate side of things um, has been using it for quite a while.
Sure.
Flat panel or troffer style lighting has had that technology for a few more years than residential, and so there's a lot of offices up there that um, are utilizing that technology during the day. So that's where I kind of picked up on it before I saw the residential market actually start to provide or offer the resources. So I knew it was a matter of time.
Sure. And then that makes sense. You're kind of uniquely positioned. Like, you are the big guy in Alaska, right? Like, anytime we talk to a vendor, it's like, oh yeah, we have a dealer in Alaska. Like, they immediately know you're the guy, right? So do you find yourself, I know that you're in Anchorage, but like, do you find yourself kind of servicing the entirety? Like, do you find yourself on a North Slope often? Are you, going to different, you know, locales? Is that something that you find yourself doing? Because I would imagine it's not just like, it's not just like being at the Jersey Shore and going to Philadelphia or New York, right? Like, that's kind of a, you're loading up, a
He's
dog
still
sled
doing
or
Jaeger
whatever.
bombs and fist bumping the whole time though, because it's the North Shore. Sorry, or the Jersey Shore.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you find yourself in that situation, or is your stuff kind of localized around Anchorage itself, or, how do you deal with that?
Well, that's actually a really good question. And to put it in perspective, let let first I'll say we don't travel too much throughout the state. Um, there we do have remote projects that
Mhm.
we have been asked to do and to travel. Most of the places that we're going to probably do business in our world is going to be within a driving distance of an hour and a half.
Okay.
Um, you know, and to give you the quick breakdown, if you will, of Alaska, this will kind of help put it all in perspective. First off, you take the state, and if you cut it in half, that will make Texas the third largest state.
Yeah, you,
It's
you,
a
you
big
couldn't
place.
service the whole state as
So,
one entity unless you got a
Wow.
bush plane or whatever, right?
Right.
yeah. And our whole population for the whole state is still under 800,000
Wow.
for the
That's
whole state.
that's less people than are in Irvine, where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
blows my mind.
And so you take that into perspective. Anchorage is the largest city as far as population, with about 320,000 ish.
Okay.
Then you have Fairbanks and Juneau. Juneau, can't remember the latest numbers, but I'd say around 100.
Mhm.
Fairbanks is probably 125 or so. Um, and then we have the what we call the Matsu Valley, which is Palmer and Wasilla. They're about 30 miles outside of Anchorage. So there's still a concentrated part
Sure.
in of a concentrated amount of people in an area that surrounds Anchorage all the way down to Homer, and that whole area from Anchorage down that direction is what we kind of consider South Central. We call it South Central. So when you take what we do um, and you put it into perspective, it's not like we have a huge client base.
Right.
We have to be good at multiple things,
Mhm.
and not only that, we have to also be willing to diversify because Alaska does have their mansions, their large builds, their you know uh, 4 million to $10 million projects that happen, but
Sure.
not extremely often. And
Mhm.
so we that's why I diversify, and I know how to shift when we need to make up, you know,
Right.
for the quiet times, if you will. So,
Well, and
but it's growing. It's
mhm.
growing.
I mean, that's a great, that's actually a great segue into, you know, some of the things that you offer now that are probably kind of new, like the power storage and the power management and that sort of thing, where, you know, these are things that seem to be kind of tailor built for a place like Alaska where there's a lot of self-reliance, right? Like that's sort of a theme. And, you know, I'd imagine that some of these new technologies and again, the storage, I mean, is solar big up there? Like, is that even a thing? I know, you know, it's a, it's not going to be like South Florida or Southern California, but like, you know, for self-reliance to not have to get an oil delivery or, you know, fill up your propane tank or whatever that is, like, I'd imagine that that's, you know, maybe part of it, but the power storage thing seems, you know, seems like a no brainer there. Is that, you know, kind of your tact with it?
So I would say yes. I mean, that's the focus. That's what we want to be able to do is provide more power resources for clients up here. Um, Believe it or not, I actually got a pretty stiff education about power up here in the last 6 months,
Hmm.
where um, one of the primary utilities in Anchorage, um, you know, they are actually far behind the curve at
Oh,
really accepting a lot of the new technology. And uh, you know, admittedly so, they know that things have got to change, but our power is not necessarily bad in Anchorage, and it's not necessarily expensive, but there have been a lot of people throughout the state also to get on board with solar. We do have a couple solar farms. It does help a lot of the villages, and there's organizations also that are better equipped to deploy solar than we are, especially in the remote environments. But for portions of the year, there are areas in the state that solar absolutely is a good choice
right.
because some of them they're paying 40 cents plus
Oof.
per kilowatt hour.
Sure.
So
Ooh.
um,
Or will they live in like do they live near Long Beach or something? Because wow.
Yeah, wait, that's what I'm paying. Wait.
yeah, but as far as the local area, we are already deployed a couple power systems, and we've got the knowledge and the know-how, and now I'm actually expecting it tomorrow, believe it or not, the power display for Savant that or from Savant that we're going to have in our design center so that we can do some training, some sort of lunch and learns, or
That's
I'm
great.
trying to look for a new word for that because it's kind of hard to have lunch and learn at 8 p or at 6 p.m. So maybe you guys can give me some ideas there. So um,
Oh, see, now you got the wheels turning, but I have to come back to that one. I've got some good alliteration.
but
You gotta figure that
but
one out.
I'm definitely excited about power and power opportunities because as you guys both know, I mean, the industry is really it's going to benefit greatly from it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that is going to take off. It's not a given for sure, right? Like it's definitely, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, especially in your market. You're probably like the vanguard of this, and you talking about, just to read between the lines, it sounds like you're educating the power company in a lot of ways on how, how these things work, how they can be beneficial. And,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, it's not exactly a given, and it does take a lot of, a lot of convincing and a lot of showing the benefits for people to really get into it. I mean, it was hard for people to immediately accept, even here in Southern California, where we're paying our utility rates are exorbitant, and you could talk to somebody and say, okay, here's what you can do. You charge these batteries overnight when it's, when it's a third of the cost or whatever, and then you run them down during the day, and that's how you save money. Even that wasn't super convincing, right? Like, well, what do you mean I need to have a stack of batteries here? And how am I going to manage this thing? And how, that's kind of why the Savant solution felt pretty good, because it's got a great UI. It's easy to manage. You can really, kind of see these things. So yeah, I would imagine, especially you just being, just being the guy out there, trying to push that ball forward. It's great. And it's a benefit to your client. It's just, a matter
Right.
of kind of getting them on board with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously nothing, nothing is easy, I'm sure, as far as trying to get people to do new things.
Everything costs more. Everything's harder to get there. You've got all of those extra layer costs. Alaska might as well be Hawaii as far as shipping and all that stuff goes. You got some extra challenges there.
Pretty close. I mean, I won't say anybody can be a business owner, but what I will say is that, businesses and startups and business management is pretty straightforward in a lot of cases. But when you have to throw in learning logistics of a location like Alaska or
Sure.
Hawaii, you learn to be pretty mouthy to vendors
What?
about freight.
You got to throw some elbows. Sure. Hey, if you want me to
Yeah.
use this.
Yeah. No, I have to say, one of the best things that I ever did, honestly, was to get involved with a buying group, and it only because, I'll tell a little story. I'll throw this out there because I've already, Richard was very aware over at Azion. So when I first joined Azion, he had plugged me for a couple years. Um, you know, when you gonna get in? When you gonna get in? And let's look at your numbers. And one of the last times I talked to him, he says, "Well, you're just borderline. You're right there. You need to up this area or whatever." Richard's a great salesman. I
Sure.
love Richard. He's a great guy. So I got a phone call, I don't know, in a few months from Patrick, and Patrick said, "Hey, I think we need to really look at trying to get you on board. I really want to do this before we kind of get to a point where we're maxed out, and then you don't have a spot in there." And I said, "Okay, so talk to me." In 20 minutes, we basically came to the conclusion that it's not about the numbers. And Patrick says, this would fit you even if you didn't make any great numbers over the years. And I mean, we all know the membership fees are like, I don't know, $3,600 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And how we came to that conclusion really quick was, this was back when Jason was over at Sony, and I love Kathleen. I love the whole crew, and long story short, Sony still offers a great program for Alaska and Hawaii, unlike some Samsung. Samsung doesn't do it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I want to be as fair as I possibly can be here.
Facts is facts, baby. Facts is facts, Jaimey.
The bottom line is, I at that time I bought a 55-inch TV from Sony just to see how much the freight was going to be. And the freight was more expensive than the TV, dealer cost. It was $700 in freight for a 55-inch TV. So you do the math on 4 55-inch TVs that anybody and their brother can sell in a year. I have paid for my membership to ASEAN.
Right.
So right after I signed up, I walked into the Hilton in Nashville. It was my first ASEAN meeting. Richard was sitting in the the cafe there in the lobby, outside the lobby with the board members, and he calls me over. He's just so excited, but he thought he was going to throw me under the bus, and he thought he was going to poke at me a little bit because we did have a good relationship. We still do. But
Mhm.
I walked up and he says, "Guys, I want you to meet the guy that traveled the farthest to get here. And what I want to know while you're standing here is why in the hell did it take Patrick only 20 minutes to sign you up?" And I told him, I said, "Well, you're the salesman. You tell me." I said, "I know why. And if you really want me to share it, I will tell everybody in front of you." And he says, "Sure." I said, "You were worried about my overall numbers. But what you didn't think about is just in the simple part of how much it saves me from one vendor
Mhm.
in freight annually.
Sure.
The membership is non-existent at that point. Everything else is gravy on top." And he goes, "Wow, I didn't think about it that way." I said, "Well, there's your new marketing technique to get anybody from Alaska and Hawaii. But by the way, you're not allowed to get anybody else from Alaska."
That's actually, I mean, that's an amazing story, and honestly, voice of customer for why buying groups make sense
Well,
for businesses at a
and he
certain
was so
level, right?
embarrassed by that he resigned in shame,
Oh no, he
right?
retired. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I mean, that's the story. I think that's what I
he
just
had
heard you
all the, he
say,
had all
right?
the air miles he could ever need. Come on, Richard's a great
Sure,
dude, good friend of
absolutely.
ours. Lots of love, but I mean the guy's been around the world a million times. But I wanted to circle back to the part where you were talking about competition. What you are the known entity in Alaska, right? How have you survived the waves of Californians and Coloradoans and whoever and who have decided, you know what, there's an untapped market potential in Alaska. I'm going to go out there. Jaimey Sapp did it in '96. I'm gonna do it too. What are you doing to position yourself, or what are you offering to clients to make sure that they know that you are the guy to go to.
Well, I will say it like this. I don't think there's anybody else out there with big enough balls to put their stuff in a truck and drive up here.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I love it. No, that's a great. I mean, that's a great
Absolutely.
perspective, man.
Yeah.
That's a great
Um,
perspective.
in all honesty, we don't, I'm also fortunate in that aspect, knowing that the economy has been a little bit of an up and down thing since COVID and pre-COVID. But what I will say is we're fortunate to not really have a lot of competition up here.
Mm.
Um, small companies here and there, one or two man shops, and then there is one primary competitor that I think he probably has, about as many employees as I do,
Mhm.
and yeah, I won't give him a plug
Oh
whatsoever.
no, no. Yeah, again, I just
Yeah.
I think it's more of again interesting to hear because again, I would imagine that some people might visit Alaska on a trip or whatever and go, dude, there's no AV companies up here, and there's all this money, and there's this building, and there's oil, and there's industry as well as residential to keep my business going. And then again, maybe they show up and go, oh wow, I didn't realize I had to ship anything here and pay an extra X percentage on top of it. So
Fail to see the
yeah,
sunlight for 6 months at a time.
again, I think it's just a unique perspective on what the competitive landscape looks like there.
Well, there's several layers to that. I agree with you. Just to give a little perspective there, I have a client in Arizona, and I have one in Hawaii. Um, Getting there is not easy, but my whole point in that is the one that I have in Arizona. I did my homework while I was down there at trying to figure out who would be a competitor in that area,
Mhm.
and I couldn't find one for 20 miles.
Mm.
So I could see how that could happen,
Right.
but visitors coming to Alaska, it's a little different because um, especially Anchorage, it took me years to really get to know who's who
Hmm.
up here. It's not an overnight you go pop up shop and people are going to start paying attention unless you've got some money behind you, like serious money,
Sure.
Right.
because it's going to take major marketing, and then you're going to get that raised eyebrow from people around. So I would say in certain ways it's a tight city, a tight community. It's just big enough to be a city, but small enough to be a town. And it's not easy to get started here.
Sure.
It did take me a long time.
Yeah, well, you're the new guy that showed up in '96, right?
I, I was.
Like I get that, and I can feel some of that, like the small town. They're like, oh yeah, those are the new people. Like, yeah, they moved here in 1985.
years ago.
What are you talking about? Right?
Sure.
That's how it is with some of my relatives and in my hometown. So they're like, oh yeah, the new
Yeah.
people. I'm like, new people. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how what do you think the percentage breakdown is between people who are full-time Alaskans and people who have a second or third home? And like, how do you run into that? Do you find that it's almost, exclusively vacation or second home, or do you think is it a ton of year rounders? Like, how does that break down?
I think you're going to have more vacationers and vacation homes outside of Alaska.
Mm.
I don't think we have a major amount of people, that vacation to Alaska or have vacation homes up here like that. I think it's probably going to be the inverse more so, because it's, number one, it's an expensive place to live.
Sure.
And so, would I tell you that there's not people that don't have a summer house here? I'm sure there is. But I think it'd be more of a snowbird effect that, much like New York goes to Florida,
Sure.
Alaska goes to Arizona or Colorado or,
Right.
California. So, but it's definitely, it's so diverse here. I mean, all walks of life. It's really hard to tell. And most people that, I guess you could say, are of the luxury mindset and the luxury pocketbooks.
Right.
Um,
Almost a
they
prerequisite
quite-
just because
they're
it is
quite-
expensive.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have to worry too much about, I need to live in a gated community in Alaska.
Right.
I mean, we do have them, but it's
Well,
not as common.
Everybody's
Gated.
armed. Everybody's armed.
Gated because of the bears, if we're being clear, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, gate has a different functionality. It's not just to keep out the riffraff; it's to keep out the Kodiaks and the wolves.
Yeah,
and-
it's concealed
Yep.
carry of bear mace, really.
yeah,
is.
exactly. I love that.
Well, I don't live, I would say, too far out of the heart of town. I live in an area we consider the South Side, and it's still very, very populated. I mean,
Sure.
my property is essentially pretty close to a half acre. But most every house in my neighborhood are they're about that size. So I have houses around me, I have population around me, but I've seen bear,
Sure.
moose, wolverine, fox.
Wolverine. Wow, what
Wolverine.
costume did he have on? Was it yellow?
Yeah,
or-
was it yellow or it was Deadpool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I've actually seen live in the wild. I say in the wild, in the city, believe it or not, 2 wolverine in the past year and a half.
Wow.
And
Now,
they're
that is
night
an animal
creature.
you don't think about every day. That's amazing.
And
It just
a
sounds
lot
like
of
such a
people
cool
don't
place.
realize- a lot of people don't realize how fast they are. Oh my gosh, it's scary. But the first time we noticed it, my wife was out playing with the dogs in the backyard. We were getting closer to break up. It was the end of the winter, so you're getting a little more daylight. And she called me outside. She goes, "These paw prints look weird." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, look at them." And so I looked at these paw prints in the snow, and it was too small to be a black bear, but it wasn't a cat because it had long claws, and wasn't a dog print. And we were like,
Wow.
well, that's weird, really weird. So I went back and pulled my video camera feed, and my neighbor then told me also he heard the wolverine going after probably a rabbit or a cat or something under his deck, and he said it was the ungodliest thing he ever heard in his life. Um, but I saw the wolverine chasing a house cat through about 6 inches of snow,
Jeez.
and I mean it would make bounds at 3 feet,
Wow.
So it was wild.
It's like you're living in a nature documentary. Like you never know. You just pull the tape from your surveillance cameras and like you could have, Richard Attenborough just narrate over it for the whole.
Yeah. I had to break my cameras. I could never get away from just digging through them.
Oh yeah, you gotta like, okay, I gotta just give it a rest.
Exactly.
You got like PTSD from like trying to flip through the cameras. I wonder what's going on with camera 3 right now.
See, that would be the move, is the external camera on your deck that you charge access to, those of us here in the lower 48. Like, you're never going to know what kind of weird shit you're going to see in the camera. And maybe that's worth a couple bucks a month, right? Like,
it's a good idea. Yeah.
We can make that work.
Hey, listen, we'll promote it on the podcast. We need to get our beak wet a little bit.
We'll do more than just promote it. We'll watch it on the podcast.
Yeah, we will.
Along with an audience.
We'll just put a Twitch, set up a Twitch feed where they have to, you can do like, they have one where you can feed the ducks, like,
perfect.
You can give moose treats or something. I don't know. We gotta work this out. We gotta figure this out.
So Jaimey, we could literally spend the next 4 hours talking to you, and it's great. You're just awesome to talk to. I did have one thing that I wanted to get to, and it kind of ties in with, your area, the size of your area, how this all works. How do you attract and retain talent? I would imagine that that's probably one of the most difficult things in the market that you're in is finding guys. Number one, right? Finding warm bodies is probably not the easiest thing. And then finding guys who are kind of qualified or training them up or whatever, and then preventing them from going over to, Uncle Brown Bear's AV Emporium or whatever, whatever you want to call it. Like I would imagine that
such a crook. Uncle Brown Bear.
That guy. Yeah,
I don't know. Do business with that guy ever.
There's probably not even brown bears in Alaska, right? They're all grizzlies at this point. I'm just trying to be, accurate. But it's a legit question, just because I'm sure, obviously by virtue of the fact that you are sitting with us today, you have, figured out ways to kind of get around us and succeed. How do you do it?
Well, it's got its transitions. It's got its ups and downs. I first started trying to hire years ago, by talent only, if you will, ability. And I was able to accomplish that to a degree, but you're correct. It's not like I have a bunch of AV guys or custom integration guys hanging around, just waiting to be hired up here. And it's not like I can reach across to Canada and get anybody either, because that's the Yukon territory.
Because they're worthless. Is that, or are you about to say
Canadians?
Well, no, it's still, I'd be better off to try to get somebody from Washington, which would have been the closest place. But the thing is I transitioned, I guess you could say, to training talent, basically in-house training talent. It's the only way to really do it here. And so after quite a few failed attempts of hiring based on ability, I realized I was destroying culture. Right. And I went through probably a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years of, hey, this guy might know what he's doing, but he does not fit our culture. And I have a very staunch opinion about business culture also, and tying that into answering your question, I learned that I hire off of culture and competence. And then we worry, okay, I won't say worry. We apply. Can you learn? Are you willing to learn? And if you're willing to learn, there's an investment to make here.
Yeah,
Um,
skills can be taught, right? But it takes the basic ingredients. Yeah,
yeah,
we've just done, we'll talk about it on another episode, but we just sort of went through the dishwasher of that with Sonance, excuse me. And culture is such an important component to a successful organization. So it's great to hear that affirmation come from you and unsolicited even. So fantastic.
well, one, I guess another little tidbit to that is I could almost ask every potential employee, hey, are you willing to get in your truck and drive 5,000 miles and move across the the continent to improve your life, your goals in life? Because I function entirely on drive. My drive, my goals. My dad he worked until 2 days before he died. He's just that was who he was. And I know I'm a workaholic in a lot of ways, but I like to I like to promote drive in new hires simply because they are their only limit to how much they want to make.
Right.
You know,
That's a great point.
in this industry,
It's
it's one of the
sage words, man. Sage words.
That's
yeah.
it is, Jason said it, but it is incredibly validating to hear the importance of culture, right? Like, we hear it and there's a lot of talk out there, and I think a lot of people kind of know it peripherally, but to see you put it in practice is definitely it's encouraging, because you're 100% right. You need the guys who you can't piss off the team that you have already, because those are guys that you've invested in, right? Like, you definitely have to
Yeah.
be selective. And yeah, I'd imagine with a smaller pool, it's not as easy. Have you attracted anybody from like the lower 48? Like, have you pulled anybody, along in your truck with the tarp? Like, have you made anybody else make that voyage?
No, I wish it was easier. I honestly wish it was easier, but I guess you could say the risk and reward of the whole thing is, um, I have to look at turnover in a way that if I brought somebody up, obviously they're going to want some sort of compensation to move,
Sure.
and
You get one
that
tarp. I will supply you a tarp.
I'll mail you a tarp.
Yeah, when you get here, I got your miner's cap and your pickaxe and your gold pans.
Here's a stack of Hagstrom maps. You can't use GPS, and
That's
here's a
right.
tarp.
And
Oh,
for,
You need
man.
to follow my
and for
footsteps.
energy, you can have a can of Lipton iced tea.
Yeah. Circle back. I love it. There we go. The callback.
See,
Jamie's a
that would
pro.
be the move, right? Is put an ad in, CE Pro targeted at like Georgia, and one of the caveats is you need to bring like a 55-gallon drum of sweet tea with you. And
Well, I know it's working, honestly, because I've had employees since that my focus on the cultural impact on the company. Um, I've had guys come and go and they just don't fit, and
Sure.
I don't even have to terminate them. They leave because they realize I don't have a clique. We don't have any kind of attitudes like that, but there's accountability among each other, and they hold their coworkers accountable, and I give them that
There's another
ability
word.
and that you know leash length to say, hey, this is your house,
Mhm.
and we want good talent, but we want people accountable to each other, and they love coming to work. So
That's great. And it is. It's that trust definition, right? Like the accountability and the trust in your peers that everybody is swimming in the same direction it's something that we so often overlook in any business, but in CI in general. So it's really good to hear, you say that. And yeah, we're coming up on the end here. Is there anything that you want to share? I mean, you got any are there rainbow trout running right now? Is it salmon season? What do we got?
No trout running right now. Most of the lakes are still frozen over. You might get some moving water in the streams, but um, a lot of times, oh, believe it or not, I actually love ocean fishing in the winter here.
Okay.
I like it even more than the summer. And I've been out, king salmon fishing, what we call winter king fishing, out of Homer and Seward in the wintertime, where there's chunks of ice floating by and it's 26 degrees and you had to shovel the deck off the boat to get to your fishing pole.
It's just,
And
yeah, no, no, no on my checklist, but
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to
you can
hear that
tell
works for
you might be
somebody.
in trouble if you turn around and there's a film crew from the Discovery Channel
Yeah,
and a
I
guy
was
throwing
gonna
a lobster pot or
say,
crab pot in, right? Maybe
wow.
well, the difference is it's so peaceful. And I know you guys probably just as much as I do look for moments in life where you can just enjoy the quiet. And every chance I get to go out, I'm fortunate to have a very loving brother-in-law that has a 29-foot boat with a cabin. So um, we can turn on the heaters in the cabin, sip a little whiskey, and wait on the fish to bite. But it, when you open that up and you get out there, you don't have the buzzing of the charter boats and
Mhm.
all the stirring of noise and wildlife and all that. It's quiet. It's so quiet you can hear the ice crackle, and that's,
Wow.
to me, there's nothing like it. It's amazing. It's really
Man,
amazing.
sounds. You need to get a microphone out there for a little like ASMR. That
You
you
paint
know,
an amazing picture, Jaimey.
yeah, that sounds
That
great.
sounds
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Well, the
it's
whiskey
crazy.
in the boat sounds the most. Sorry, that's just me. That sounds like a good time. That
All
sounds
right,
like a
so
good
so
time.
listen, before you make me feel worse about my life and Jason worse about his because we're not because we don't have any relatives with boats, I think is really the whole key. But man, we really appreciate it. Being out here, just kind of being our friend. It's
Yeah.
great to just know you, and thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with us. And we I'm going to put you on the spot. We definitely want to have you back at some point just for give us your thoughts on stuff. Like
Yeah.
this was great.
Absolutely. I would love to. It was a pleasure. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I do look forward to getting back together with you guys on here and also in person at our next event.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We are. I think Jason and I are both after this conversation. We're both racking our brains on how we could justify a trip up to
Yeah,
Alaska.
I
I
mean,
think
what we need to hear about is the next big event that you need support for and marketing
yes,
support for. We can shoot you a little video. We'll
big
show up
Sony
and
Sonance
make
job. We
you
can make it up, whatever.
make you look like a rock star, and that's what we're here to do. So that's
Awesome.
we're looking forward to that opportunity. So for
I,
everybody here on the Inside Integration podcast, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for myself. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
It's been a pleasure, and Jaimey, thank you again, man. Really from the bottom of our hearts. It's always great to
thank
talk
you
to you.
guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Bye bye.
Dude, seriously, you rule. I don't
That
know how
was
you
great,
felt
dude.
about it, but man, we
I,
we loved having you on. It was
I
great.
literally think that was the best one we've done, honestly. So
It's true.
Well, that's scary.